Queen is back, but I've got to put her down. Hi. Hello. Um, Sorry for any background noise if there is any. My voice is a little bit quieter. It's a bit later in the day. I'm trying not to be as loud and obnoxious, as difficult as that may be. So, I'm here to review the Big Finish audio novel adaptation, The English Way of Death. Not The title isn't super related to the story itself. Set in England, people die, there are undead people, you know, so kind of fits together. This story has a much better first half than it has a second half. I think the first half, it's quite a long one, it's over 2 hours, but the first half really gripped me. I was like, oh, I'm actually fascinated to find out what happens. The explanation isn't bad, but the second half of the story, I realised towards the second half, because all the characters come together, because they're separate from most of the story, you realise there's an awful lot of characters in this. Some of them don't do much. I'll obviously get into specifics later. And it just feels, especially the 4th episode, it feels like they didn't know where to go with it. You know, a lot of the resolution is kind of like, here's this device. Zap. You know, the bit where he's trapped on the spaceship because Julia or Losto is like, I'm out, because she'd rather die than become host to Zerdal. I don't know, it was just like, oh, so that's stopping him? So I guess he can't... What, he can't just take her dead body? But then, I mean, I don't know if it'd be a permanent way to live, but he took over dead people previously in the story, so what stops him from just doing that and then piloting the spaceship around? I don't know, it was a bit of a lackluster ending, and it is adapted from a novel, so I don't know if their future novels O'Dal ever returned. I also don't know how good of a novel adaptation this is. For all I know, it's super accurate. For all I know, it's completely different than the original story. I can see a hair. Pulling it down isn't going to help me. In Nutcliffe, I think it was, when Stackhouse first gets taken over and you're like, oh, what's up with Percy? I was super intrigued. I was in, you know, it's a bit of a shame that Stackhouse just dies at the very beginning, basically, because he gets taken over by Zadal. What is happening with my computer? The main characters, Tom Baker and Lala Ward, slip right back into the roles. I mean, I haven't really seen much of Romana 2's stuff. I haven't really seen much of Romana 1 either, to be fair. So it's kind of new to me. I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to it. And I really liked Romana in this story. I like that they connected it to the overarching plot of the show at the time. I didn't realise there was a thing about them trying to escape from the Black Guardian, but I liked how Romana's always trying to one-up the Doctor. There's always this kind of like, oh, I want to be better than him. I think Romana's half of the story doesn't carry as much substance as the Doctor's half. And I really liked the Doctor, but there were bits where he was like, I'm going to go play bridge. And I was like, this seems odd considering the peril. But I like the bit at the beginning where he just goes to the library. I like when he's like, oh, the Black Guardian knows this is the first place we would go. So he's obviously not going to check there because he thinks that we know, so we would avoid that place. And I was like, okay. Did they ever say where the time corridor came from? I'm pretty sure they just say that it was like left over from someone else and it wasn't very well created. Do they also, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think we ever find out what the, like, that, because whoever the people, the agency or whatever, the bureau, that's it, the bureau, are trying to send a message to the people from the future who are living in the past, and they never actually find out what the message was, I don't think, because they never managed to, unless I messed that bit out, but I thought that was going to add up to something, and it didn't. And the time corridor isn't destroyed either. I feel like the ending, the story doesn't really have an ending as such, which again might be because they revisit these elements in future novels, I don't know. But the time corridor's still up, there's no real repercussions for the people from the future living in the past. Zodal isn't really defeated. And what was his name? Scottish scientist man, Porteous, he ends up not being as important as I would have thought it to be. He's really not in it that much. I have a bruise there. Ow. Are you too hot to drink still? Is that a film? I think I've made this wrong. That's gonna be too hot. I guess I'll get into the other characters. I feel like I'm not being very enthusiastic at that review. That's just because I'm trying to stay quiet. But also the second half of the story just really ruins it for me. Like, I'm still going to give it a pretty high score because the first two are so great at building up intrigue, and all the characters feel really fleshed out, and everything is like working together in a way. Like, oh, the man who almost ran Romana over was the colonel. You know, it it all connects. But then as it goes on, they find less and less things for the characters to do. Some characters by the end of it, like Felicia, I'm gonna call her Felicia. She The whole thing about her and her novels, I just don't think it really amounted to much. I like there were a couple bits where they sort of do cliche investigative stuff, and the bit at the beginning when she's like, well, no, with the person leaves the room and the doctor's like, oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, didn't you sense the instant attraction between us? And he's like, no. And I didn't really buy their romance either, because he like ditches her when it gets dangerous. So I'm not sure why they ended up together, to be honest. I thought the Colonel and Harriet had more chemistry, to be perfectly honest. Julie was very well played by Annabelle Mullion, but again in the second half, she takes her flying box, which was quite an odd sight to imagine a detective just like a detective hit woman lady just flying out the window. I liked her character, and I liked how she kind of wasn't that trustworthy. She reminded me of Lytton, especially in the way she died. That she wasn't necessarily good, but like she wasn't evil. You know, she was trying to like stop the world from being destroyed. She just didn't really care who she killed in the process. The villain Zodar was actually really cool. I like when he took over K9. I liked the idea of him being this wolf creature, because I like when aliens just don't look like humans for no particular reason. Praxius. I liked the idea of it. He couldn't go through the time corridor because it would kill him. Bonded himself to a cloud of radmium, so that he could get down the corridor without dying. And like he was taking over these bodies. The imagery of the sort of people who were like green, and the way they described the mist and everything, it looked really cool. And the cover of the audio, like the sort of box cover, is really matches the story. I really like the performance of Percy, but as a character, I find him less and less likable as the story went on. I feel like I haven't said much in this review, but the first half is amazingly strong. I like the characters. I liked the plot. I liked the way they were building it. I think the sound, the backing audio for the first half is much better than the second half. I think the location was really cool, really well developed. I thought all the voice actors were doing their best work, you know, and it was both a really good mix of obviously modern technology and the audio recording and ideas, but it also felt like it could have been part of late 70s, very early 80s Doctor Who. It sounded to me, when I was thinking of it sounded like a story, like if they were to do like one-off specials every year or so, where they would recast a classic Doctor and classic companion and have like another adventure with them, like a 4-part mini-series basically. This is what it sounded like to me. I thought they'd do something like this if they were doing the Fourth Doctor and the Romana, like almost like a detective one. But the second half, it just becomes a lot more bland, constantly having to hear him go, the wheel of Zodal. It really gets annoying having to hear the word Zodal all the time. And when he's giving his backstory, basically, of I think he's giving it to Romana and the Colonel and K9, he talks for a long time. Like that bit in the ship, that's the only bit where it just feels almost like we're just sitting talking about it. Like, can we learn more about him later, especially as in the 4th episode, nothing much is going on. I think that's because the 4th episode is almost entirely confined to this warehouse that isn't given much personality, because it's not been meant to. So it just sort of drains the life out of it. I think the 1st and 2nd episode are the strongest. So overall, I'm going to give it an 8, because again, if I listened to the first 2 episodes and I couldn't listen to the next 2, like, till let's say the next day, I'd be pumped. I'd be like, oh, I can't wait to find out what happened. But it's just a bit of a disappointment. Like, honestly, it could have been like a 9 if the second half was as strong as the first. So yeah, it's an 8. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, which is probably quite short and very quiet. I am about to edit a Buffy review and then do some homework. Thank you for watching. They're real close. Oh, before I go, my dead leg really complained about that movement. This is called a Chocochino. Maybe it's just watching like little drink reviews. Chocochino. It's very milky. Tired for watching.